Hello again. Today's book for my book talk involves an individual, or is the work from an individual who started or was a spearhead or major figure of the humanistic movement in psychology. And most of that entailed bringing the power and the resources to the person themselves. Or in other words, client-centered therapy. Prior to that, it focused on doctrines, methods, ideas outside of the individual. But Carl Rogers himself believed that all of the solutions that we were looking for were inside of us. And that, today, is what he's most noted for. Helping clients solve their own problems. Hello, everyone. The book I'm going to be reviewing today is called On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers. And in this little video, I'm going to give a very, very brief summary. I'm going to go over the things that I want to highlight and that I learned. And last but not least, I'm going to give the book a rating. So first and foremost, a summary of the book, right? On becoming a person? Aren't we already people? Becoming, you are, right? Well, in a sense, we might be. But what Carl Rogers does throughout this book is he explains that we are a process of discovering things about ourselves, trying to learn things, trying to grow. Much like the rest of the life going on around us, we ourselves are growing as well. And from chapter 1, This Is Me, where he gives a brief introduction about himself, his life on a farm, originally majoring in agriculture, going to history, and then getting into psychology and psychotherapy, to his client-based work. And from that point, it goes through a wide variety of chapters, all the way to chapter 21, talking about the behavioral sciences. It's a 401-page book, so it's a little bit longer than the average read, but it's wonderful, and there's a wealth of information. And Carl Rogers makes it clear throughout the book that there's hope and always an ability to come up with solutions for ourselves. And that summary right there, that summary is briefer than my others. I think what I'm trying to do right now is explore how to summarize and then add what I got from the book in a more unique or a more tighter way, so to speak. So that's what I'm going to provide for now. Now I move on. So from that, I'm going to move on to what I learned, the tidbits, things of that sort. As I said earlier, throughout the book, it's all about becoming a person. Now, what does it mean to become a person? What is needed, in other words? Carl Rogers, as I said earlier, was a psychotherapist. And the base, so the bread and butter of what he wanted to set up was a triangle of 3 points. 1, congruence. 2, unconditional positive regard. And 3, empathy. I'm going to briefly go through those points. Congruence. When your emotions and your thoughts line up with what you say. For example, if you're feeling angry inside, but on the outside you say, I'm good, you're not being congruent. And in Carl Rogers' mind, it was about being congruent that would allow the client to grow as a person. So for example, if I'm the therapist and you're the client, and I look at you when you come in and I'm a little uneasy or I feel a little nervous, and the person says, hey, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? And I say, great, confident, excited. Now, I might be a little excited, but if I was feeling a little weirded out about the client that came in, Carl Rogers suggested that we say it in a way, we get it off our chest, because if we don't, then the client themselves will not trust the therapist. So it doesn't mean as a therapist, in the past, with psychoanalysis and other thoughts, it was thought that the therapists themselves were supposed to just be neutral and stoic. And they weren't supposed to display emotions and just analyze the patient and prescribe them what was going on with them. But Carl Rogers said that you can't do that. You shouldn't do that because the client will not trust you. You're not an automaton. You're not a robot. You are a human being. So congruent. Playing with the emotions, your thoughts, and your words, lining them all up, and being real, in a sense. Unconditional positive regard is the second point. And what is this? Well, having a positive attitude, of course, is one bit, but you might not be all, positive all the time, right? But what it means is that no matter what the client says, what they bring forward, you, as a therapist, are able to accept it. No matter what they bring, no matter what terrible act they tell you, you're able to go back and say, okay, you're a human. I can see where that might have happened. So that's the second quality. And then the third and final is having empathy. Getting in touch with the emotions, the feelings, and the thoughts of the client. Not just prescribing what you think. Really stepping into their shoes and trying to feel into what their experience is like. That was the third factor. And those 3 points are the bread and butter of Carl Rogers therapy. Now, what are the other little things I learned? Through this process of psychotherapy set up by those 3 points, Rogers often saw something peculiar happen with each of his clients. 1, they were more willing and open to their experiences. That's just not, it doesn't mean you had to go and I've never gone on that ride before, or I've never gone to that country, I need to go. It's not necessarily that. But say the emotions or the feelings are things that the client's uncomfortable with. Well, they were more open to expressing it, or at least accepting it. So your willingness and openness to experience. Another thing was an internal locus of evaluation. So instead of priding or putting so much emphasis on getting attention from the outer world, being validated by friends, family, everybody else, the locus shifted inside. And inside, the individual could say, you know what? They might be uncomfortable with it, but I'm comfortable with it, and I want to do it. So I'm going to trust my judgment and go forward. Judging one's self and not others. It moves inside. And then another little tip too, which is interesting itself, is a willingness to be a part of the process. Right. So, instead of saying, this is all I am, I can't change that. I can't do anything about that. This is how it's always going to be. The individual themselves recognizes that, as I stated earlier, life changes. Life is a process. And that's also going on with each and every single one of us. And so the client was more willing to say, you know what? It doesn't mean I can change everything. But are there things that are going to change? And are there things that I can change? Absolutely. That's what the client would get out of that. And then from that, after that, the one other major thing I got from this, in the very end of the book, Rogers talks about a non-directedness form of learning, right? Non-directing. In other words, the teacher is not going to be like the dictator or the person in front of the classroom who does all the work and then the students just copy, they're not active in it, not doing anything of the sort. In other words, the classroom was run by the students. And Rogers ran a couple of these experiments at his university. And the very first time he did it, 5 class sessions went by, and the students were like, what the hell is going on here? Our teacher's not telling us anything. What are we supposed to do? Well, eventually, one of the students said, I get what the teacher's trying to do. They want us to use the materials that they have, and that we're going to teach and have discussions ourselves. And from that moment on, they got more and more excited, and the students were involved. And even though there were disagreements, they loved that their desire and their curiosity and their willingness was being stimulated by themselves and not a teacher telling them to do it. And when these students left their classrooms, they were always saying, wow, this is an amazing class. I love that class. And of course, you did have some kids that disagreed with that method. But it was a brilliant success in his mind. And I don't know if the current education system will allow that. However, I have found when it comes to learning things, the books I've read, or how other people do things, there's an inner desire or an inner stimulus that has to come forward, right? So if a kid doesn't want to learn, you can hammer stuff into them, but they're not really going to learn. You can memorize a whole bunch of facts, but do you get the big picture? And are you expanding your mind? And that's what I think that Rogers brings forth. That's wonderful. And I kept questioning whether that should be the system. And in my mind, I think that would be a wonderful thing. Carried out in practice with everybody might be a little bit harder, but I really liked where he was going with that. And that's what I have for my insights, what I found fascinating with On Becoming a Person. Now, with the rating itself, I, of course, am very generous, and I still need to make that video about my ranking system. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. The reason I give it a 9 out of 10, a lot of great resources. Sources and sites for days on end. Some of them are a bit older because the book is older, but it's a wealth of information that could help anybody who's interested in the field of psychology or even their own inner world. Wonderful thing, wonderful experience. And the 401 page read, like I said, is a little long, but it's written in a way that I think an elementary school kid could read it. Yes, there are concepts that a third grader might not talk about, but it's very easy to read. Because I know there are other philosophy books, psychology books, academic books that quite frankly are a little hard to read, especially for somebody who doesn't really like books a whole lot or is only curious about a thing here or there. So that's another plus for this book. As far as what could have made the book better or even greater is I would have liked to see more. There is a bit of it. I personally would have liked to see more patient-therapist dialogue to really help hammer home the concept of client-centered therapy. So that's my rating, 9 out of 10 for On Becoming a Person. Thank you for watching this video again. I hope you find it helpful. And also, please, 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 if you have anything I could work on or something that would make this video more entertaining, I would love to hear your viewpoint. I would love to hear your critique because I'm trying to get better. And with that, that's another book talk from me. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.